welcome to VJparivar. You are the architect of one of the biggest digital transformation projects that government of Maharashtra is embarking on, and we are very happy that you've come to our platform to share your views on this remarkable innovative concept of e-registration. So can you tell us what e-registration is all about?
Thank you, Aditya, for giving me this opportunity to talk to you and talk to all the members of your fraternity who can actually learn from what is being done in your institution, as well as what we are trying to do for the entire registration as a process in Maharashtra. First of all, thank you for introducing me as a initiator of this change. I am not the initiator, it's a thought which is ongoing, and actually the e-registration as a process started in Maharashtra in 2013, and that was the time when we actually started the e-registration of leave-in license documents, and now it has become so streamlined that we tend to forget it. So in Maharashtra, almost annually we are doing 6 lakh documents which are registered online, sitting at home. People don't have to visit our registration offices for registration of their leave-in license documents. But the idea was that to take this entire experience further, and can we do this registration of agreement of sale of the first sale of the flat of a constructed property. Also similarly, can we push this entire process to the site of the developer or the house of a buyer. Now that thought went on and on. The idea was getting curated, developed, but actual push came when the COVID situation arose. During COVID, everything was locked down, everybody was stuck in their homes, but the business has to go on, and the developer sector was also keen and eager to push for the sale transactions, and there was a pressure that we should open our offices. But then there was a fear that the offices, the way they are, as you all are aware, that they are all crowded, too many people gather, they keep on waiting for their turns to come, and in that process there was always a worry of spreading the infection. So as a solution to reduce or decrowd, decongest the registration offices, like in many other sectors, our technological intervention also got pushed, and thanks to COVID, our e-registration of agreement of sales for the first sale of the flat also came into existence. And I am happy to state that now this entire process has entered the second phase of it. Now this is very interesting phase, because initially we started off with a hard-coded e-registration document. So the developer had to submit their template of a document which had to be put onto the software, then we would provide them with a login, and then they would proceed ahead with the registration. But now what we are doing is we have developed a self-help portal for the developers to log in. So now the change is that now the developer sitting in their offices can create a system, they can create their own projects, schemes, they can create their own logins, they can assign the people who can enter the information, they can start uploading their own template of the agreement of sale, which once gets approved online by the JDR and the collector of stamps. Once the valuation is determined, whether the value zones have been selected properly, once that initial process of sanction is done, subsequently all the documents will be done sitting in developer's office or the determined place, and no buyer will have to come to our office for registration. Now this is a self-help portal, because you yourself can access this portal, you yourself can create your own template. There is no need for hard coding the document into the process, and you can keep on changing the document as many times, because there is an edit document facility also now being provided. So for the home buyers, what is the change? The process of registration is remaining the same. It starts by identifying the persons. We are using Aadhaar authentication, which is also a revolution per se in the entire digital domain. It is voluntary. So those people who are voluntarily allowing Aadhaar authentication of their identities only are coming on to e-registration. These people, once they voluntarily accept Aadhaar authentication, the document which they are executing, they are identified by using Aadhaar authentication. They are executing the document digitally, so they are getting a digital sign pad. Their thumbprints are also taken, they are put onto the document. The photographs are also captured, they are also put onto the document. And then up till now, in a real process, you needed witnesses. But since you are Aadhaar authenticated, the witnesses are no longer required. The digital document is executed by your digital sign and your thumbprint. It is locked by using a digital signature which is provided to the developers, and then the registration process also is completed online. That means there is no requirement to come to the office. There is no requirement to bring a hard copy of a document. The stamping is also done online. You have to use an eSBTR only for this, which will then go to give you the first copy of that document, which you can utilize for the entire banking transaction which is going to follow. And then it is going to go online immediately as soon as it gets approved by the e-registrar who is sitting in our head office. So this is purely a faceless process where a user or the buyer is not coming to our office. The developer or his agent is not coming to the office to present the document on the behalf of a developer. You are giving the buyers a wonderful experience of coming in comfort, coming at their own luxurious time and executing the document, and this whole process is being transparently recorded through the digital footprint of that process. So I think this is a transformational experience for the home buyers, the property buyers. Right now we are restricting only for leave-in license agreements, and now the next step, that is agreement of sale for the first sale of the flat of a constructed property. I think this is going to transform the whole process, and as the technology evolves, this is going to be much better experience for the people.
So this is music to our ears. The ease of doing business aspect is seen through the transparent process that the IGR team is doing. How easy do you think it will be for stakeholders to believe in this, because we are so used to the signing of the document, आपण मुहूर्तावरती ते sign करतो. What have you done to sort of look at the psychological aspects of the old versus the new, the traditional versus the digital?
This transformation is always going to require time, because if you compare the generation, our parents' generation was never exposed to digital. So they were, or they are still used to hard copies, physical documents. My parents and your parents still must be visiting the banks for the passbook certification. But the next generation, probably starting from ours or the younger generations for that effect, are much more digitally savvy. They are born into digital era. We are the migrants into the digital era, but they are not the migrants. They are the original recipients and habitants of the digital ecosystem. I think they will find it much more good, better experience as compared to going into physical offices, interacting physically with the registration and registrar offices and lawyers and other stakeholders into the system. The acceptability of this entire process is much more easier for the new home buyer or the first home buyer who is already on a digital platform. For them, this is going to be a really seamless experience of as easy as buying a simple good in a shop where they are simply buying some milk or grocery into a shop by paying by UPI or any other digital device. It is going to be as simple as that. Maybe if the developers are doing the entire e-payment and e-cycles of registration, prior processes also are being done online. I think this is going to be wonderfully digital experience. So I don't think that it is going to be difficult for the people to accept. Little issues might exist for the really senior citizens who are definitely used to. But as I am saying that it is a transformational journey, it is going to take little bit of time and convincing for us to also convince people of its security, of its merits of this system, of how easily you can access your documents which are protected by the government servers on which they are protected, how to access them. And then once this system is accepted, the way WhatsApp is accepted, Facebook is accepted, probably someday IGR website online also will get acceptance, and then it will be much more smoother.
That's amazing, sir. As per your information and data, how many registration documents do you think will move out of sub-registrar office and go into the developer's office, the first sale home buyers?
So today roughly I am saying that 20% of our entire documents are now of agreement of sale of the first sale of flat. We are still not going for the resale of a flat. So the first sale itself constitute to about 15 to 20% of the entire document load. That means we are speaking of around 5 lakh documents per year.
Oh, 5 lakh
5
first sale
lakh
documents
first sale documents per year
in entire Maharashtra.
In entire Maharashtra.
And most of these documents would predominantly be in the Pune and Mumbai metropolitan region.
All the urban regions of Maharashtra, I would say Mumbai, Pune, Nashik, Nagpur, these are the predominant sectors where the growth is higher. But outside MMR, PMR region also there are new growth centers which are also being looked at by the citizens and residents. The smaller satellite towns or smaller towns are also picking up. So Kolhapur, Solapur, Aurangabad, Amravati, Nashik, these are also the places which are picking up really well.
That's amazing, sir. So, as far as the registration charges go, will there be any change in the registration charges, or they would remain the same?
The charges are going to be the same. Right now, we are not distinguishing between any charges for registration fee or stamp fee. But definitely this is going to be a value added service. So one has to be looking at it in a much more positive way, that value added change is coming their way.
Sir, I must also tell you that we did this experiment and we're very proud to be associated with the IGR team, to be one of the early adapters. Our experience is that the entire process does not need too much of highly qualified staff. It means that even regular people who have some computer knowledge will be able to do this. Was this by design? I mean, did you imagine that this is going to be that way?
My observation of the transactions that happen in the offices was revealing to me. It gave me a lot of insights in the way the business of registration is being handled by the entire ecosystem. So when I saw that agreement of sales of the first sale of flat, normally the sub-registrar or the JDR, he is only examining the nature of the document strictly for the first document. Subsequently, it is only repeat procedure, and then there are multiple documents happening of the similar nature, of the similar property. They hardly vary apart from the parties to the sale. But to my surprise, I found that the agents or the lawyers or the employees of the developers who were doing this entire registration process, they were also not following due diligence because it was largely a manual process. Since they had to change the same document, edit every time, they were missing out on some edits, and they kept on coming to our offices again and again for small petty corrections. That address remained unchanged, so I had to make the correction into the document because the banker is asking make this correction. So again you are adding 30% transaction time on my office, and I am not getting any additional revenue for it. So basically, if you look at, every stakeholder of this process is going to get benefited. The lawyers continue to make the first original document, so their lawyer knowledge is not going to go away. The agents are going to continue to do the same drafting, editing, but they are going to make it more diligently because it's going to be only form addition, and they are not going to do the correction on each and every time on a document because it is going to get templatized. So their errors are going to reduce. My office anyways doesn't have to spend too much of time talking to so many people, repeating the process, which is much more technologically now getting replaced. So I think it is going to be a win-win situation for all, not just for registration department or for the buyers. it is going to be win-win for each and every stakeholder involved into the process.
That's amazing, sir. In my last few questions are largely about the future. You've introduced this e-registration process. Where do you see e-registration maturing into, say, over the next 3 to 6 years, 7 years? Do you see use of developing technologies like AI, like ML, or maybe even data analytics into predicting what will happen in terms of property prices? Do you see all of that being used through this process?
So basically, we have just started the e-registration process. How this entire registration ecosystem will move on, entire e-registration platform is yet to be predicted, because it involves basically the trust of parties involved to the transaction. And when the two parties are transacting, there is always a mutual distrust. And for such mutual distrust kind of transactions, a impartial custodian is the government, in presence of whose both parties feel secured that this entire process is being documented, witnessed by a third party, which is an independent third party, that is the government. And hence, entirely shifting e-registration onto online platform purely faceless is slightly going to take time, because it is involving larger change of our own mindsets, the way we transact our businesses. But definitely on the data that we collect, on the data that we store, on the transactional information that we store, we are definitely going to make much more value added data available to the various stakeholders into the ecosystem. Right now, we are only making available the indexes, that too on search portal, but there is no analytics coming out of it. Now we have developed our data policy. The data policy is under process of implementation. When the data policy starts, I think we will be able to provide value added inputs, the way you said that how the development market is happening in particular area, pin code wise, area wise, what are the trends there, what are the prices and their trends, what are the live and license transaction happening in a particular area, that could act like an indicator of growth or stagnation in a particular area, the opportunity for new development projects to come. And so this will feed into largely data driven policy making for the government, or data driven decision making for the investors and developers themselves. So I think this is a long way ahead that we are foreseeing. Lot of data analytics, business analytical decision making, and basically streamlining this entire process so that we are able to provide predictive analysis for the future.
That's amazing, sir. My last question. People say that that we are moving towards strata title or vertical title, land title or property title. Is e-registration one of those important stepping stones towards going into a digital PRC for every apartment?
So vertical property card or vertical title is being looked at by the state government. The work is in progress, and I think we should have that rolled out very soon. But in that process, I think registration is going to play a key role, because it is going to be the connector between creation of vertical property and filling it by the appropriate user. The registration process is the one which creates that occupancy documentation for the first time. So definitely e-registration is the link between RERA and land records. Only factor which will connect the two is going to be the registration.
Sir, thank you so much for these insights. I'm sure all the viewers that are watching us are going to be hugely benefited, and I'm looking forward to the day when first time home buyers do not go to the sub-registrar office but walk into a developer office, and should be done in about 15 minutes and they're back home. Thank you very much for coming on VJ Parivar.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you, sir.